Okay, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this next video that I'm doing. So getting right into it, for this video I'm building a cheap, basically minimum spec esports kind of gaming PC. It's going to have a little bit of flair, it's going to look quite nice, not the best components but definitely usable to play games like Valorant, CSGO, Rocket League, all of these kinds of games. And yeah, it's not going to be able to push too much beyond that, but it will be a decent PC. So getting into the specs here, we have a Core i5 25, what was it? To 500K. So that's an old chip, definitely. It's a second gen i5, but it is the K SKU, and yeah, I'm not sure. It's probably like a quad core or something like that, but I'm sure it's quite decent. In testing, we'll check that out, and yeah, I think for this setup, it'll work just fine. I think it's gonna be more or less performant according to the RAM and the graphics card. So as for the RAM, here we have 2 sticks of 8 gig DDR3. I believe it's 1333 megahertz. It doesn't actually say on here, but yeah, it's probably going to be something like that. Just low spec RAM, DDR3, 16 gigs in total. So capacity wise, we're going to be good, not too bad. As for the graphics card, we are going with the 1032 gig MSI Aero edition, and yeah, it's got one HDMI out and one DVI out. So in terms of display output, nothing spectacular, but it supports most screens. And for an esports gaming PC, it's good enough. You're not going to be able to play like Warzone or anything like that, but just for those lower spec games, it's definitely good enough, and strategy games and such. As for storage, we have a 128 gig Hikvision SSD for the Windows, and then we have a 2 terabyte, probably 7,200 RPM, just normal HDD, and this is just for storage. 2 terabytes quite a lot, obviously, to run games off. And then for the rest of it, we've got a little Wi-Fi card over here. That's just for internet, because I don't think this motherboard's Ethernet port actually works. As for fans, we have this fan. It's just an old Cooler Master fan. It came with the chassis that I'm going to be using, which I'll show you in a second. But before I do, I bought these fans off of Takealot for about 280 Rand, which is about maybe about like $18, something like that, for 3 fans. So not bad. It comes with a controller as well, and I think a remote as well. Not sure about that, but it definitely comes with a little connector. So yeah, I'm not sure about these fans. I have used a Cool Moon CPU cooler before, and it was surprisingly good for what the price was. The fans feel very solid, really not bad. So yeah, we do have a little remote here and a little fan controller, so that's quite nice for the price. And yeah, look, it's definitely not the best plastic or anything, but it feels decent. It's quite heavy duty, and yeah, no, I think the color diffusion isn't going to be anything spectacular, but let's see how it goes. For the price, you can't really complain, either way. Let's get that back in there. And then as for the CPU cooler, I've got this little Deep Cool entry level. It's called the Ice Edge Mini FS version 2. And it's just a tiny little CPU cooler, but I mean, this is such an old CPU, it's not really power hungry, as far as I know, and I don't think it's gonna require much cooling. But this is what it looks like. It's just a little fin stack and a little 80mm fan, I think. And yeah, it's really small, but I think it'll do the job quite well. Nothing spectacular, but again, this was about same price as the fans. I think was about $15 to $18, so not exactly expensive. And I think it'll do the job. And I think it'll do the job quite well. So yeah, that's the little CPU fan there. And then as for the power supply, this system isn't going to use a lot of power, especially because we don't have a power-hungry graphics card. I don't even think, yeah, it doesn't even have any external power requirements. So it's, you know, we don't really need anything big. So I've got a RAID Max 300 watt XT unit. Not the best power supply, but this was about $20. And I think it'll do the job okay for this PC. And yeah, we've got just a normal DVD-ROM. This PC still uses that. And as for the case, let me show you the case. It's just an old Cooler Master kind of chassis. Not too bad looking. It's got a little glass there. I've cleaned this up quite nice. It was disgusting. Got this second hand from someone with a bunch of these parts, and they must have had like big dogs or something, because the amount of hair that was stuck in the front at the over here behind with where that fan was disgusting. So the two fans are going to go up top, one at the back, and then we've already got one at the front, which is over there, and not going to have one at the bottom. And yeah, I think it's going to be a nice little PC at the end of the day. Nice little esports PC. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the intro. I've already made a mess. These are the parts. Let's build it. Alright, welcome to the testing for the GTX 1030 in this little PC that we built. And testing a little bit of Counter-Strike. I figured this is probably the kind of game that would be played on a PC like this. Damn, I am terrible at this. I haven't played Counter-Strike in like a year, so I'm not doing very well. And right now it's running at 1080p HD, but I've put everything on low settings. And wow, that was a bot. And yeah, it's doing quite well. It's getting around 120 frames right now, so it's quite a good result for a such a weak graphics card. Um, yeah, like I said, the graphics is on low, so it isn't anything amazing, but it doesn't look bad. It still has that Counter-Strike charm, so to say. Um, and sorry, it's really difficult to focus. And yeah, like I said, I haven't played Counter-Strike in a while, but this does look quite nice. It's very jagged, but it's quite easy to see things, and it's running quite well. It's running at about 120 now, which is more than playable. And yeah, so unfortunately, I couldn't run the MSI graphics suite on this for some reason on Counter-Strike in particular. So I'm not sure what's happened there, but yeah, so I couldn't get the usual benchmark tools going. So I'm just running the Steam FPS at the top right there, but I don't think you'll be able to see it really. But right now it's at about 110 FPS. So yeah, running really well. I did test it on high settings as well, and it gets about 60 average. Um, so still playable at high, but this doesn't look bad, and yeah, I think it feels a lot smoother. It was smooth-ish on high, but this feels really good. It doesn't seem to drop below like 100, so it's a really good result. Um, Getting into my AWP game, yeah. Yeah, I haven't played Counter-Strike in a long time. But yeah, I think that's it for Counter-Strike. Comfortably getting above 120, and especially for like a high refresh rate PC, I mean screen, this would work really well. So yeah, let's move on to the next test. Alright, loading into the Hitman 1 from a few years back benchmark. This is running at HD low settings, and yeah, right off the bat, looking pretty good to be honest. 53 FPS right now. Sorry, there's a lot of light in this, so you might not be able to see it too well on the camera with the HDR. But 60 FPS right now in this scene. This is running at low, but it is HD and it still looks really nice. Frame time is a little bit all over the place, but it, you know, it's not too bad. 45 now and 40. So it's between 30 to 50 most of the time, and it looks pretty good. It doesn't really look all that bad. This is a really populated scene, and it's getting around like 30 to 40, so still playable. And I mean, if you really wanted to get like 60s, you could probably drop down the resolution to like 720p, something like that. And yeah, this is doing surprisingly well. Pushing, getting close to 50 now, 40 to 50, using about 8 gigs of RAM. Um, and yeah, its CPU is at about 60 degrees, GPU is at about 50, so that's pretty good. Using about 2 gigs of RAM, so all of the RAM on the GPU, VRAM. And still around 50 interior scene, getting 40 to 50 frames, so yeah, pretty good result to be honest. I wasn't expecting it to do this well. I was thinking it's going to be like 20 to 40 for the most part. But yeah, good result. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, here we are with the Far Cry New Dawn benchmark, and this is running at HD with everything on low, getting around 30 FPS right now, moving into this interior scene. and yeah, using around 8 gigs of RAM, 2 gigs of VRAM. GPU is at 100%, pulling around 30 watts. CPU is pulling around 50 watts. And yeah, getting around just around that 30 FPS mark, which is a little bit low. So to get a more playable frame rate on this, you would probably have to go for 720p with this card. Apart from the card, I think having 16 gigs of RAM and having the i5 second gen CPU, it's okay. But I think the card is just holding us back a little bit here. Alright, let's move on to the final benchmark. Alright, so here we are with the Crash Bandicoot 4 benchmark. This is kind of like a playable benchmark. So yeah, I always try and test this kind of cartoony console style game with a PC like this, just because these are the kinds of games that you would typically play on like a PlayStation 4 or even a PlayStation 3, and yeah, it's doing okay. It's running at medium right now on HD, and we are getting like around like 30 to, oh, that was dumb, 30 to 40 FPS, sometimes dropping in the 20s. But with a game like this, it doesn't feel bad just because of the style of the game. It feels playable, just because I think, yeah, it's not like you have to shoot at things, you know, it's a much more arcadey styled game. And yeah, it seems to be pegged around like 35 frames for the most part. Doesn't really stray too far from there. Using around 6 gigs of RAM, around 27% of the CPU is being utilized, which isn't much, but 100% of the GPU, so massive bottleneck there. And then GPU is pulling around 30 watts of power, CPU is pulling around 30 watts of power. So yeah, with 6.5 gigs RAM being used, it's really not a bad result. Like I said, it feels smooth just because of the type of game it is. Like, you know, like playing Spyro or Crash Bandicoot or any of those old like arcadey collectathon kind of games. You don't really need the highest frame rate. Sort of like playing a strategy game sometimes. And so this feels nice. Yeah, I think that's about it for the benchmarks. Let's talk about the results a little bit. Alright, so quickly discussing the results that we got. I think it is pretty much what you would expect for the price. I wouldn't say the results were bad at all. I mean, the PC looks quite nice, especially because of the cheap lighting and RGB little controller we put in there. Again, that's controllable with this little remote. You see, I can change it around, change colors and things like that. But the thing about it is, when you only have a couple $100 to spend, maybe even like under $200, you know, it can be tough to find something that you could actually play games on. And if you want to play really high-end games like your Warzones or you know, AAA games like Tomb Raider or you know, high-spec racing games, or even I'm trying to think of games right now. Haven't really been gaming much lately, but you know what I mean. Just like higher spec games that are more difficult to run and require a lot of VRAM. I haven't tested things like PUBG or Apex on this, but I'm sure it would run those games as well. Apex, it could probably run quite well at HD even. And the point I'm trying to make is, you could pretty much choose between, for $200, a PlayStation 4 or a PC. And a PlayStation 4 would probably perform a little bit better than this, but if you added like $50, you could get quite a nice graphics card, and you could probably double the performance of this. And so I think just because it's a computer, there's more you can do with it, right? So You could do light video editing, you could do admin work on it, you can program on it, you can make games, you can, run a whole job from it, run a business, make websites, whatever it is that you need to do. And I think it's just for the money, there's a lot more value, right? And especially now, there's a lot of deals popping up, cheap graphics cards. You could get a graphics card like this for probably around like $20 if you really look for it. So yeah, it's a good time to build a budget PC, I think, just because people that are upgrading don't want much for their old stuff because they know the value isn't there anymore for all the graphics cards and things. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the gaming results of this, there was nothing really it couldn't play. I didn't show it in the benchmark, but I even played Red Dead Redemption 2 on the lowest settings on 720p, and it got like around 40 frames in some areas. So you could even play Red Dead Redemption 2, and again, you can play that on PlayStation 4 as well, I think. So maybe it's not the best comparison, but it really depends on what your needs are. And so I think, especially if you want to play games like Counter-Strike, Rocket League, Apex maybe, just competitive esports kind of titles, Valorant, something like this would be more than enough. And you could probably even play competitively at low settings on HD. So yeah, that's about it for this one. This was an interesting PC to build. Really didn't spend a lot of money on it, and if you're into flipping PCs, you could make money, building PCs like these and selling them. If I sell this one, I would probably easily double my initial investment. So yeah, that's about it for this one. If you enjoy the content I'm making, please let me know. Been trying to make more videos, but it's tough. Yeah, let me know what you think about the content, what you think about the type of videos I'm trying to make. If you have any suggestions or any criticisms, please let me know. And please follow, leave a like, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for watching. Cheers.